I've got How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which is by Neil Gaiman, who is one of my absolute favorite authors. He wrote American Gods, Neverwhere, Coraline, Stardust, Anansi Boys, Sandman, is one of his great works. And so pretty much that's all I needed to go into this. Oh, also Good Omens. I love Good Omens. So I knew it was based on a short story by him, and I knew it was being directed by John Cameron Mitchell, who did Short Bus, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and Rabbit Hole with Nicole Kidman, who's actually also in this movie. That's all I felt I needed to know. I was like, okay, I'm on board. I love the two of these people. I love the idea of them together. And so the story takes place in 1970s London, and it follows this kid N and his friends. ENN, it's pronounced like the letter though, and it's kind of like on the punk scene of London, but outside of London a little bit. And they're punk, but they're really not that punk. I think they have a zine. You gotta have a zine. And I maybe wish I'd known a tiny bit more about it. The trailer wasn't out at the time, and I hadn't read the short story, and so N and his friends end up at this house party, and they meet all these like weirdly dressed, colorful people. And so I thought it was going to be about meeting these weird people and how to talk to girls and chat them up, and the uniqueness of them. And turns out they are aliens, and it's very much hinted at in the movie, but it's not explicitly said until a little bit later in. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a metaphor. Maybe this is some sort of like, oh, we're supposed to see that we're all aliens, but we're all human. And no, they're actually aliens. So mildest of spoilers, but it's now more apparent in the trailers. Like, they're aliens. So Anne meets this girl, Zan, who is from... The idea is that aliens are in colonies, and they all kind of are represented by, like, heart and, like, mind and independence and physicality. It's very bizarre. It's a little Captain Planet-y. But again, what do you expect from Neil Gaiman? Of course it's going to be a little bit bizarre. So Zan rebels and kind of goes with Anne, and they go on a little adventure, and it's kind of young love and also finding your place in the universe. And Nicole Kidman shows up in it, and she looks like David Bowie in Labyrinth, like the spitting image of it. And she plays this kind of punk fairy godmother. And I don't, it's so weird. It was so weird, but I found myself laughing. I found myself having a good time. Like, there were parts that were very sweet. It's a mishmash. It's not going to be the greatest thing you're going to see this summer, but it's certainly going to be one of the most unique things. And if you're a fan of either Gaiman or John Cameron Mitchell, like, I think you're probably going to want to see this movie. It's a little bizarre, though, because it's not, I think John Cameron Mitchell very much puts his stamp on his films, and Short Bus and Hedwig are two of the bigger examples of that. So it's interesting to see him adapt somebody else's work in a sense. But clearly the two of them get along great, and, the artistic vision was there. So I take it with a word of caution. Like, it's very bizarre. Also, don't expect it to be super punk, and don't expect it to be hardcore sci-fi. So it does fall in the middle there, and it's a little, strange on that account, because I think those are probably the two audiences that maybe this is being marketed to, but not necessarily going to fulfill either of their expectations. But I think it's worth checking out. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. So the other film I've got is called American Animals, and it is actually based on a true story of these students, friends, young guys who tried to rob a library that I guess has some very expensive books in it. And it's very interesting. It's directed by Bart Layton, and what he does is he actually weaves in footage of the actors and the original criminals. Evan Peters is in it, and he is Quicksilver in one of the X-Men, and I honestly think he's probably the better Quicksilver. I find him more enjoyable. He's in the one with Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, and Blake Jenner is also in it. You might remember him from Glee and Everybody Wants Some, also The Edge of 17. And it's a little bit weird because these guys are, almost 30 probably, or mid-20s, and they're still playing 18-year-olds, which I find a little bizarre. I'm absolutely going to butcher his last name, but Barry Keoghan from The Killing of a Sacred Deer and Dunkirk is one of the other guys. And then finally, Jared Abrahamson is the last of the kind of 4 core guys who commit this crime. It also stars Ann Dowd, who, man, I love her so much on Handmaid's Tale, but I'm like, is she just never allowed to play, a fun character again? She plays the librarian, and one day I want to see her in a comedy. That's all I want. Just to see what happens, because I know she's got the acting chops for it, and I think she could pull it off somehow. Anyway, so it's a crime. It's one of those weird things where it's like, okay, well, you kind of know how it ends, and that's very, there's no suspense in that sense. Again, I think it's an interesting conceit, weaving together the actors and the actual criminals, and you can tell that the criminals or the original guys are actually pretty charming. And I think the casting, even though, visually they don't all look alike, they do a pretty good job of trying to embody these people. but you do kind of watch for it now because it's sort of highlighted in that you're trying to not pick it apart, but you're very aware of like, okay, well, he doesn't really look like him because I just saw him 2 seconds ago. There are definitely enjoyable moments of the movie, but it's not my favorite heist film. I think it sounds weird, but the stakes don't feel that high. And again, in part because you kind of know how it ends. Also, the one thing I do like is there's a level of subjectivity to it because you're hearing it from all their different perspectives. You're hearing it from the 4 different guys who are involved, and then there's the filmmaker's perspective, and then there's the artistic like actor interpretation. I just don't know if the actual content or plot lives up to the methods used for this. So I'm actually only going to also give this one 3 out of 5.